Alex had finally found what he thought was his perfect sanctuary. A charming two-story home nestled in a quiet suburb where the streets gleamed under the golden afternoon sun, and neighbors smiled politely while trimming their manicured lawns. The neighborhood was everything Alex had dreamed of after years of renting cramped apartments in the city. As he unpacked the last box in his garage, Alex felt a rare sense of peace. The air smelled faintly of freshly cut grass and blooming lilacs from Mrs. Rivera's garden 2 houses down. But beneath that serene surface, a subtle tension seemed to linger, like a faint static buzz beneath the melody of calm. It started small. The first time he noticed it was just after sunset. Alex had finished a long day at work and was heading into the garage to unload groceries when he caught a glimpse of a shadow near the edge of his driveway. It was fleeting, just a flicker of movement, but enough to make him pause and glance over his shoulder. The street was empty, no one in sight. Probably just a trick of the light, Alex muttered to himself. But as he slid the garage door down, that unsettling feeling settled in his chest. The next few nights were worse. At around midnight, faint noises would echo from the other side of the garage, a subtle creak, the soft scrape of something metallic. Alex would hold his breath, straining to catch the source, but nothing ever appeared. No footsteps, no rustling bushes, just silence after the brief disturbance. He checked the locks. Everything was secure. His mind tried to rationalize the sounds. Maybe raccoons or neighborhood cats. Still, the unease persisted, like a shadow just out of reach. Then came the letters. The first was slid under his front door one morning, crisp and official-looking. The HOA logo was emblazoned at the top, with Karen's name signed at the bottom, Karen, the president of the Homeowners Association. The note read, "Dear resident, it has come to the HOA's attention that your garage door remains open for extended periods, violating community guidelines for aesthetic standards and security. Please ensure your garage door remains closed and locked at all times. Failure to comply may result in fines." Alex frowned. He'd barely left the garage door open, only when moving boxes or unloading. It felt petty, almost trivial, but the tone felt more threatening than neighborly. Later that day, as he walked the neighborhood, Alex overheard whispers among the neighbors, quiet conversations behind clipped hands. "That Karen woman? She's something else," muttered an elderly man, pruning his roses. "She's always watching," a woman replied, glancing nervously toward the street corner where Karen's SUV was parked, shining under the streetlight. Alex's curiosity piqued, but so did his apprehension. Karen's reputation was a mix of fear and fascination among the residents. Some called her the HOA enforcer. Others whispered she had a Karen streak, always ready to call out the smallest infraction with an iron fist. As the sun dipped low one evening, Alex sat in his living room, the soft hum of city life just beyond the windows. The garage door was closed, the locks secured, yet his eyes kept darting toward the driveway. His phone buzzed with a notification, a text from an unknown number. "We're watching." His heart thudded hard in his chest. Had the petty warnings escalated into something darker? Was Karen watching him? The chilling thought gnawed at Alex's mind. Outside, a light flickered on near the street lamp. From the window, Alex glimpsed a figure stepping back into the shadows, just for a moment, but long enough to know he wasn't alone. The quiet threat was real, and it was only beginning. The morning sunlight spilled through the blinds, casting sharp lines across Alex's kitchen table. He stared at the second letter from the HOA, his fingers tightening around the edges. This one was more pointed. "Dear Mr. Reynolds, it has come to the HOA's attention that your garage contains an unauthorized item, a large blue tarp covering several boxes. Such coverings are prohibited under Section 5.4b of the Community Guidelines. Immediate removal is required to avoid escalating fines." Alex blinked. A blue tarp? He thought back to the boxes he'd stacked in the corner of the garage, tools, and some old furniture he hadn't unpacked yet. He hadn't realized the tarp was such a big deal. It seemed petty, ridiculous even, but the tone of the letter carried an unmistakable edge. Comply or face consequences. That afternoon, as Alex drove to work, he noticed Karen's black SUV parked conspicuously near the cul-de-sac. She sat behind the wheel, eyes scanning the street with an intensity that made Alex's stomach tighten. It was as if she was waiting for him. When he returned home, the neighborhood felt colder somehow. The usual hum of lawnmowers and children playing was muted, replaced by hushed conversations that abruptly stopped whenever he approached. "People are scared of her," Mrs. Ramirez, the woman from next door, whispered as she watered her azaleas. "She's not just strict, she's obsessive." That night, as dusk folded into darkness, Alex felt the weight of invisible eyes again. The creaks and scrapes returned from the garage, louder this time, like someone rifling through his belongings. He wanted to believe it was the wind or animals, but deep down, he knew better. Deciding to confront the situation head-on, Alex installed a small security camera near his garage door. It was a modest device, just enough to catch any movement after hours. The camera's red light blinked steadily, a silent guardian against the unseen threat. The next morning, the HOA sent another letter. This one was stark. "Non-compliance is not tolerated in our community. Further violations will result in penalties, including possible towing of unauthorized vehicles or removal of non-compliant items." Alex's pulse quickened. Towing? Removal? The stakes had just been raised. Late that evening, as the neighborhood quieted, Alex reviewed the footage from his camera. His breath caught when he saw it. A figure creeping toward his garage, moving deliberately, pulling gloves tight over their hands. The camera's night vision captured the outline clearly. Tall, purposeful, unmistakably Karen. His heart pounded. As he watched Karen carefully snapping photos of his garage's contents and making notes in a clipboard. Then she lingered near the garage door, pressing buttons. But the door didn't open. Alex's mind raced. How had she gained access? Was there a hidden key? Or had she found a way to override the lock? He felt a surge of anger mixed with fear. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She was invading his sanctuary. The following day, whispers around the neighborhood grew louder. Rumors circulated that Karen had been seen taking surveillance pictures of other neighbors too, not just him. Alex knew he needed allies, but most neighbors kept their distance, afraid of becoming her next target. As dusk fell, Alex sat on his porch, eyes darting toward the streetlight where Karen's SUV had become a permanent fixture. His phone buzzed again with a message from the unknown number. "Watch your step." His grip tightened around the phone. This wasn't just about a blue tarp anymore. It was a silent warning and a declaration of a quiet war. The stakes had escalated, and Alex knew one thing for sure: Karen was not going to back down. The days that followed felt like walking through a slow, creeping nightmare for Alex. Every noise, every shadow seemed charged with menace. The peaceful neighborhood he had dreamed of was turning into a pressure cooker of fear and suspicion, with Karen as the unseen tormentor pulling the strings. It began with small things. On one particularly cold morning, Alex opened his garage to find his toolbox shifted from its usual spot, a wrench missing. He thought it must be a trick of his memory, but then a glove he always kept hanging on the wall was nowhere to be found. Most unsettling of all was the discovery of a tiny black device taped under the edge of a shelf, a miniature camera. Alex's heart pounded. He stared at it, the cold plastic lens staring back as if mocking him. Someone had been spying on him inside his own garage. That night, he set up a more sophisticated security system, linking cameras around his driveway and garage to his phone. But the anxiety only grew. The faint noises returned, louder now, shuffling, scraping, whispers just beyond hearing. Alex would freeze, holding his breath, only to find empty shadows and cold air. One evening, as he was reviewing the footage, the screen suddenly went dark for several seconds. When the feed returned, it showed a blur of movement, a shadow darting past the garage door. Alex rewound the clip and paused, zooming in. The figure wore gloves and a hood, moving carefully, but deliberately. He swallowed hard. Karen's image appeared again on the footage, this time lurking near the perimeter of his property. But now it felt different. Was she alone? Or was this something more organized? His phone buzzed again, a new message from the anonymous sender. "You're not as safe as you think." The chilling words tightened the knot in his stomach. The bow. Invasion wasn't just physical, it was psychological warfare. Paranoia crept into his daily life. He began double-checking locks, inspecting every corner of the house for hidden cameras or listening devices. Sleep became a luxury. He'd lie awake, eyes fixed on the garage door, waiting for sounds, bracing for the inevitable. Neighbors noticed the change in Alex. Mrs. Ramirez offered kind smiles but whispered, "Karen's got a way of getting inside. Your head." At the next HOA meeting, Alex tried to raise concerns. His voice trembled as he spoke of his missing tools, the unauthorized surveillance, the harassment. But Karen smiled sweetly, dismissing his claims as misunderstandings and overreactions. The board members glanced at each other, hesitant to challenge her. Feeling isolated, Alex decided to investigate on his own. Late one night, he took a flashlight and quietly circled the perimeter of his property. He found fresh footprints near the back gate, small, precise, and leading to a narrow gap in the fence. Suddenly, the beam of his flashlight caught a glint in the shadows. It was a small, discarded keychain engraved with the HOA logo. His blood ran cold. Karen had the means to enter his property at will. He pocketed the keychain and retreated, heart hammering in the darkness. Back inside, Alex started cataloging everything. Suspicious, strange sounds, missing items, the mysterious messages. He began planning how to catch Karen red-handed, but with every step he took toward uncovering the truth, the danger closed in tighter. Outside, the neighborhood lights flickered once more, and a dark figure watched silently from the shadows. The silent siege had only just begun. The night air was thick with an uneasy silence, broken only by the distant hum of cicadas. Alex lay awake, muscles tense, eyes fixed on the darkened garage door. Every creak, every whisper outside made his heart leap, but tonight, something felt different, heavier, more sinister. At exactly midnight, a faint clicking echoed near the driveway. Alex sat up abruptly, grabbing his phone and switching on every light inside the house. The glow illuminated the living room, but shadows still clung to the edges. Then, the unmistakable sound of the garage door unlocking. He darted from the bedroom, heart pounding as he crept toward the garage. Through the frosted window, a tall figure was silhouetted against the dim streetlight, moving with deliberate, practiced ease. "Karen," Alex breathed, recognizing her distinct posture and the sharp cut of her blazer even in the shadows. He fumbled for the door handle but hesitated. Was it better to confront her, or call the police and risk losing the chance to catch her in the act? Before he could decide, the garage door began to rise slowly. Inside, the soft glow of his security camera's indicator light blinked red, recording every second. Alex watched, frozen, as Karen stepped inside, gloves pulling out her phone. She took pictures of every corner, every box, her eyes cold and calculating. She crouched and rummaged through his tools, then moved to the workbench, pulling a blue tarp free from a stack of boxes. Her fingers traced the fabric with disdain. Alex's blood boiled. This was more than petty enforcement. It was an invasion. Suddenly, Karen glanced toward the house, her eyes narrowing. Without warning, she turned and strode out, slamming the garage door behind her. Alex slammed his own door open, heart racing. The garage was disheveled, boxes shifted, and the tarp tossed aside. He looked out just in time to see Karen walking briskly to her SUV, already preparing to drive away. But then his car was gone. His pulse skyrocketed. The space where his prized Sedan had rested was now empty, save for a small note pinned to the garage wall with a sharp nail. Alex grabbed it, hands shaking. Your vehicle was towed for violating HOA regulations. Contact the HOA office for details. Karen, he slammed the note down, fury boiling over. How could she do this? Without my permission? Without notice? Alex grabbed his phone and dialed the towing company number listed. The operator's voice was cold and bureaucratic. Yes, your car was towed this morning. Authorization was given by the HOA president. Sorry for the inconvenience. Alex's world spun. She had overstepped every boundary, legal, moral, and neighborly. This wasn't enforcement. It was theft. Determined. Alex called the police to report the illegal tow and the forced entry. As he waited, he looked around the neighborhood. Some houses had porch lights burning bright, others cloaked in darkness. He wondered who else Karen had targeted. How many had silently suffered. A distant siren wailed, growing louder. Alex took a deep breath. This night was far from over. The quiet, orderly suburb had shattered, and the war with Karen had become real. The community center was packed to the brim. Chairs lined the room, and the hum of whispered conversations buzzed like static electricity. Residents shifted uneasily, glancing at one another. The air felt thick, not with celebration, but with anticipation and dread. Alex sat near the front, clutching the folder of evidence he had collected, photos from his cameras, copies of the HOA letters, the towing receipt, and even the little black camera he'd found taped under his shelf. His hands trembled, but his jaw was set. Karen sat at the head table, her posture rigid and eyes cold, a thin smile playing on her lips. She looked every inch the iron-fisted HOA president, as if daring anyone to challenge her authority. When the meeting was called to order, Karen began with her usual scripted speech about community standards and safety. But Alex's mind was elsewhere. This was his moment. He stood abruptly, voice ringing through the room. I want to speak. Heads turned sharply, murmurs spread like wildfire. Karen's smile tightened. Mr. Reynolds, we have an agenda. If you have concerns, please share them during public comments. Alex took a deep breath and began. Karen has been breaking into my garage. She's been spying on me, harassing me with illegal surveillance, and yesterday, she had my car towed, without any notice or legal authority. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Karen's voice sharpened like a whip. These accusations are baseless and defamatory. I have acted within the rules to maintain our community's integrity. Mr. Reynolds is attempting to stir unrest, but Alex wasn't done. He laid the evidence on the table, photos showing Karen lurking near his property, letters with threatening language, the surveillance camera he'd discovered, and the towing receipt signed with her authorization. Neighbors leaned forward, eyes widening. Karen shot a venomous glance at the HOA board members, some of whom exchanged nervous looks. A voice from the back spoke up. Is it true? Has Karen been abusing her power? Others nodded. A few shook their heads, fearful. Karen raised her hand sharply. Enough! I am the president of this HOA, elected to uphold rules. If anyone here is unhappy, they are welcome to run for my position. The tension escalated as the room split between those who supported Karen's strict regime and those who whispered about her abuses. Alex pressed on. This isn't about rules. It's about harassment and illegal actions. We deserve respect and safety, not tyranny. Suddenly, from the side, a voice called out, I've seen her take photos of my backyard too. Another neighbor added, "My mailbox was vandalized after I questioned her fines." The crowd murmured, the atmosphere thick with fear and frustration. Karen slammed her fist on the table, her voice rising. "I will not tolerate insubordination or slander. Those who speak against me will be held accountable." Whispers of intimidation filled the room. Alex felt the weight of isolation, but also a surge of resolve. This was bigger than just him. Just then, the door burst open. 2 uniformed police officers stepped in, commanding silence. "We're here on a warrant to investigate complaints against Karen Ellis," one officer announced, using her full name. Gasps and shocked faces turned toward Karen, who looked stunned, but quickly masked it with a cold glare. The officers began to question her in front of the stunned crowd, while others in the neighborhood exchanged looks of disbelief and cautious hope. The showdown wasn't over, but the tides had shifted. Karen's reign of control was cracking, and Alex's fight for justice was only just beginning. The police officer's presence at the HOA meeting sent a ripple through the neighborhood. Some residents whispered with relief, others with apprehension. Karen, once untouchable, sat stiff and silent. Her usual confidence cracked, if only slightly. Alex left the meeting with a mixture of adrenaline and exhaustion. The fight had begun, but it was far from over. That night, in the dim light of his kitchen, Alex spread out the materials he had collected: photographs, letters, text messages, and his own notes. But as he sifted through the evidence, a nagging feeling tugged at him. A sense that Karen's harassment was just the surface of something darker. He recalled the strange text messages he'd received, the anonymous threats, the warnings. Who was behind them? Karen? Or someone else? Determined to find out, Alex reached out to a former cybersecurity expert he'd met at work, Jenna. Over a late-night call, Jenna's voice was sharp with concern. "Alex, these messages are coming through. A burner phone with layers of encryption. Whoever's sending them wants to keep their tracks covered." "Could it be Karen?" Alex asked. "Maybe. But this feels like a professional operation. Too sophisticated for a local HOA president." Alex's mind raced. Was there a bigger conspiracy lurking beneath Karen's petty tyranny? The next day, he returned to the neighborhood with Jenna's advice in mind. He started asking questions, but the neighbors were tight-lipped, some too scared to talk, others seemingly eager to avoid trouble. That afternoon, Alex discovered an online forum dedicated to the community, hidden behind private groups and locked discussions. There, posts hinted at a shadowy network manipulating HOA boards across the city, enforcing harsh rules and extorting homeowners under threat of fines or worse. One username stood out, Watcher42. The posts from this account were chilling, describing detailed surveillance tactics and intimidation strategies. The account was active, always watching. Alex's blood ran cold. Could Karen be part of this network? Or was she herself being controlled? As the sun set, Alex noticed unusual activity near his garage again. A car idled suspiciously across the street. He snapped a photo with his phone, fingers trembling. Then, as if sensing his gaze, the car sped off into the night. Alex's phone buzzed. A new anonymous message. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." The warning felt more urgent than ever, but Alex was done running. He started connecting with other homeowners who had faced similar harassment. Together, they shared stories of mysterious fines, property damage, and even intimidation calls. The picture became clearer. Karen was just one piece in a larger, sinister puzzle. But exposing the full extent would be dangerous. As he locked his front door that night, Alex glanced toward the garage. The faint glow of a security light flickered briefly, then went out. Somewhere, in the shadows beyond, eyes watched. The web was tightening, and Alex knew this fight was about more than just a garage, or a car. It was about reclaiming his home and his life. The following morning dawned with a heavy gray sky, mirroring the turmoil in Alex's mind. His quiet neighborhood no longer felt safe. Every glance over his shoulder, every unfamiliar sound, reminded him of the invisible battle raging just beyond, the surface. But today he knew there would be no hiding. After gathering with the small group of neighbors who had come forward, Alex felt a flicker of hope. Together they formed a plan to confront Karen, this time with witnesses, evidence, and the backing of the police investigation that was finally gaining traction. At the next scheduled HOA board meeting, the room was more packed than ever. Tension crackled in the air like static. Karen entered confidently, but her usual smugness was tempered by a wary glance as she scanned the crowd. She spotted Alex near the front, flanked by the handful of neighbors who had shared their stories. As the meeting began, Karen launched into her rehearsed speech about community safety and responsibility. But Alex wasn't interested in platitudes. When her tone took a sharp edge, he interrupted. "Enough," Alex said, his voice steady but firm. "We're here because you've abused your power. You invaded my home, ordered the illegal towing of my car, and intimidated many of us." Karen's eyes narrowed. "That's slander. You're trying to turn the community against me." "Look around," Alex said, motioning to the faces of the neighbors beside him. "We're not alone. We have proof. Cameras, photos, letters. Evidence of your harassment." Whispers erupted as he laid out the documents on the table, passing them to the HOA board members and officers present. Karen's composure cracked, her voice rising. "You don't understand the bigger picture. I'm doing what's necessary to keep this community safe." "And at what cost?" Alex challenged. "You're tearing it apart. And from what we've uncovered, you're part of a larger scheme. Exploiting homeowners for profit and control." Gasps filled the room. Karen's facade flickered, her confident mask slipping for a fraction of a second. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. The overhead lights cut out with a sharp snap, plunging everyone into uneasy blackness. A collective gasp echoed, followed by murmurs of confusion and fear. Emergency lights flickered on, casting eerie shadows. The tension ratcheted higher as the silence stretched. Then, a muffled sound. A scuffle near the back of the room. Alex's heart pounded. Was this an attack? A sabotage? A neighbor shouted, "Who did that?" Before anyone could answer, the police officers standing near the door stepped forward, their flashlights sweeping across the crowd. "Everyone remain calm," one officer commanded. "We're conducting a search based on new evidence." In the flickering light, Karen's expression turned from anger to panic. The officers moved toward her, revealing a concealed envelope stuffed behind the podium. Inside, they found documents, linking Karen to the shadowy network Alex had uncovered, the one controlling HOAs and extorting residents citywide. The room fell silent. Karen was handcuffed, her protests drowned out by stunned gasps. As the officers led her away, Alex met the eyes of his neighbors, some fearful, some relieved, but all united. The dark web of deceit had begun to unravel. But Alex knew the battle was far from over. There were still secrets to uncover, allies to find, and justice to fight for. And as Karen disappeared from sight, one thought burned brighter than ever in Alex's mind. This community would never be the same. The weeks that followed Karen's arrest brought an uneasy calm to the neighborhood. Alex watched as neighbors began repairing fences, both physical and emotional, and slowly reclaimed the quiet life that had been shattered. HOA meetings transformed from battlegrounds into forums for genuine community discussion. New leaders emerged, promising transparency and fairness. For the first time in months, Alex felt the weight in his chest ease just a little. But even as normalcy returned, a whisper of doubt lingered in his mind. One evening, Alex sat in his garage, now freshly cleaned and restored when his phone buzzed. A message appeared from an unknown number. "You think it's over? Think again." His pulse quickened. He stared at the screen, the words burning like a warning. Curious and unsettled, Alex opened a link included in the message. It led to a video, a shaky, grainy recording from a hidden camera placed inside the neighborhood clubhouse. In the footage, several well-dressed figures gathered around a table, their faces blurred but their voices chillingly clear. One spoke. "Karen was just a pawn. The real operation is bigger than any one HOA." Another nodded. "We'll need a new strategy. The Reynolds incident won't be the last." Alex's stomach twisted. The shadowy network was still active, adapting and expanding. Suddenly, his own front door creaked. He spun around. Standing in the doorway was Jenna, the cybersecurity expert. "I thought you should see this in person," she said quietly, handing over a small USB drive. Together, they plugged it into his laptop. Files spilled onto the screen. Emails, financial records, encrypted messages revealing a citywide operation manipulating multiple HOA boards to funnel money and control from unsuspecting homeowners. And at the center of it all was a name that sent chills through Alex, a prominent local developer with plans to buy up and redevelop the entire neighborhood. Alex leaned back, the weight of the truth pressing down. Karen had been just one piece, sacrificed to hide a much darker conspiracy. The fight wasn't over. It had just shifted into a new battlefield. Determined, Alex and Jenna began planning their next move. They would expose the developer, rally the community, and reclaim their homes from corruption. As the night deepened, Alex felt a surge of purpose. The battle for his home, and the truth, was far from finished, and in the shadows beyond his window, a new figure watched silently, waiting for the next move. The war for the neighborhood had only just begun.